People who are always a success in school and college and sports and work and businesses, and they're super successful people. What a lot of people don't realize is many of those people are driven. I kind of wonder why they're driven. And often they are driven because they don't feel worthy, because their idea is perfection. And they're not happy unless they're perfect, because they have a lot of criticism. And to allay the criticism, they have to do everything perfectly. They have to do the best. And they won't sleep and they won't rest and they work all the time and all that stuff. And yes, they are externally very successful people, but often they have a low sense of self-worth. And unless they're absolutely perfect, they make one slight mistake, they don't come first in the exam, they come second. They're not the highest paid person in their company, the second highest paid. They run a business and it's maybe in the top 5 in the world, but it's not the top one. They rate everything and they look at it very badly and they judge themselves, and they're outwardly very successful. So in our society, we tend to promote people who appear to be outrageously successful. Hi, today I'm going to talk about the psychology of self-respect. And yes, there is actually a psychology of self-respect. So what is it that we have to do in order to respect ourselves and feel better about ourselves? And there's actually 4 constituents of this concept. So we actually have self-esteem, which I think is pretty obvious. This idea of how we rate ourselves, so we feel about ourselves, is our self-esteem. And our self-esteem is largely based upon our self-worth. And our self-worth relates to our worthiness and how we feel about ourselves. So it's like esteem or self-esteem is a recognition of our self-worth. We can also go a little deeper into it, and we're going to come across a thing called self-identity. And so our self-worth is also strongly linked to self-identity. So self-worth is obviously things like, I'm a worthy person, I've got money, I've got education, I've got a loving family, all these things. But we also have the self-identity, and the self-identity is how I think about myself. I think I'm a Christian, I think I'm a Jew, I think I'm a man, I think I'm a woman, I think I'm a transsexual, for example. I think I'm basically happy, I think I'm basically sad. And these are the ideas of self-identity, how you identify yourself in the world, how you label yourself. Another concept we have is self-concept. And self-concept is the overall picture of, my self-identity is, say, for example, I'm a man of a certain ethnicity, from a certain level of wealth, a certain cultural background. My self-worth is how successful I am. I've got a job, for example, I've got so much money in the bank, I've got a family, that's my self-worth. And my self-esteem is basically based upon how I rate that self. So this is kind of how you put it together. So we have self-esteem, which is largely based upon self-worth, which is linked to ideas about ourselves, self-identity, and then we have a general self-concept. So this is kind of the technical doodahs behind the idea of self-respect. And my self-respect is largely based upon how I rate all of this, and largely based upon self-esteem. But I think for practical purposes, we can take a far more practical approach. And because you can go around in circles with this stuff, here's the more practical approach. The more practical approach is that you, as a young person, were impressionable. And you picked up on arbitrary ideas about yourself and the world around yourself. And these ideas were certain things are good and certain things are bad. So, for example, you might come from one family situation, and you might say that people of this socioeconomic background are good. So maybe you came from a wealthy background and you were taught that people from this background are good and poor people are bad. Maybe you come from a poor background, you're taught that poor people are good and rich people are bad. You might be being taught that certain race is good or bad, certain socioeconomic type of people are good or bad, people of certain religious sentiments are good or bad. You also might have been taught to just, feel guilty, or to feel bad about yourself, or to feel good about yourself. And so all of these impressions are programming yourself at an early age. And this creates a sense of self-identity of who I am and how I fit into the world. And along the way then, we are going to go through life and we're going to evaluate ourselves and create a sense of self-worth based upon how we feel we stack up on these different levels, okay? So for example, when I was a young guy, I remember my mom would be saying things to me like, why aren't you like that guy around the corner? Because he's got a car and a job and a girlfriend. And I didn't have a car, I didn't have a job, and I didn't have a girlfriend. So my self-worth wasn't so good. I didn't stack up so well. Your father could be a huge business person, and his idea of stacking up would be something that would be millions and millions of dollars. And you might feel that you're not so wealthy, therefore you don't stack up. You might be raised to believe certain things about, how to lead a life. And then you're feeling that you're not that. So for example, a lot of people were raised by very critical parents. And so for example, we'll see a lot of very, very successful people in life. People who are always a success in school and college and sports and work and businesses, and they're super successful people. What a lot of people don't realize is many of those people are driven. I kind of wonder why they're driven. And often they are driven because they don't feel worthy, because their idea is perfection. And they're not happy unless they're perfect, because they have a lot of criticism. And to allay the criticism, they have to do everything perfectly. They have to do the best. And they won't sleep and they won't rest and they work all the time and all that stuff. And yes, they are externally very successful people, but often they have a low sense of self-worth. And unless they're absolutely perfect, they make one slight mistake, they don't come first in the exam, they come second. They're not the highest paid person in their company, the second highest paid. They run a business and it's maybe in the top 5 in the world, but it's not the top one. They rate everything and they look at it very badly and they judge themselves, and they're outwardly very successful. So in our society, we tend to promote people who appear to be outrageously successful, but we don't realize or think about, are they happy? Do they have a sense of self-worth? So Elon Musk, for example, is Elon Musk the richest man in the world? Is he happy? That's a very mute question. If you see him on podcasts, he doesn't seem like the happiest guy. I'm not criticizing, he seems to be a guy with a lot on his plate. So he mightn't be happy. He probably has a strong sense of he has to achieve certain things, and without achieving those things, where's his self-worth? So we're stacking up. So we get this early life programming. It's very arbitrary, and our self-worth tends to be how we rate ourselves compared to those external achievements. And of course, you've got then your early life training with your self-identity, your sense of self-worth, and of course your self-esteem is based upon your self-worth, because if, say, for example, let's say you went to medical college, and let's say you were gold medalist and came first in your medical college, and something happened to you and you got derailed from that career, because you aimed to be a great doctor, and maybe you're just a doctor in some government hospital or something, it didn't go the way you wanted to. Even though you're successful by most people's standards, maybe you feel that you should be number one, you're not. So your esteem goes down because sense of self-worth is not what I thought it would be. And so the overall self-concept then is that I'm maybe not so successful. I think a lot of people in life are not as happy as they think they are. And we got people who are a success who don't realize their success. Of course, people who by all standards are not successful. And some of these people feel very happy, even though externally people say, hey, you're a bum. You just, you draw the dole, you don't do much, and yet they're happy. Why are they happy? Because in their rating system, they're happy. So how we respect ourselves then comes down to how worthy we think we are and our sense of self-esteem relating to that. And so to respect ourselves, we must have a high sense of self-worth and a high self-esteem based upon that self-worth. So how can we improve the situation? So, in order to have a better sense of self-respect, just work backwards. You need higher self-esteem, which means you need more self-worth and improved self-identity. So the easiest way to respect yourself more is to stop rating yourself. You are rating yourself based upon a bunch of arbitrary programming which you picked up early in life. It's not that important. It's not that relevant. You see, people tend to see themselves as too important. They tend to think that everything they do is terribly important. And they feel that they have to be a certain way. Well, that feeling that you have to be a certain way is largely your program you picked up early in life. And the easiest way of feeling good about yourself is developing non-conditional love and respect for yourself first and then for others. So what exactly is this non-conditional love and respect? Realizing that you have a specialness about you simply because you are who you are. I remember having a conversation with my father later in life, and I had many conversations with him, and I kind of felt that talking to him, he had lost some self-respect. He felt he wasn't so worthy. His self-esteem was down. And the basic cause of this was because he felt as a retired man in old age and poor health that he wasn't so worthy. He wasn't doing anything to have self-respect for. He didn't have any self-esteem. Therefore, how could he respect himself? He was just some old guy hanging on and being helped out by his kids. But the reality is that he was rating himself or ranking himself as the dad. That he had always worked hard, that he looked after everybody, and now, since he can't look after everybody, therefore he's unworthy. Therefore he's low self-esteem. Therefore he doesn't have his own respect because he's now disrespectful or unrespectful because he's just a hanger-on. But let's inverse that and think to ourselves. Let's say somebody you know has a new baby. Maybe you have a new baby or there's a new baby in the family. And you go and look at that baby. You ever notice that everybody's basking in the baby? The baby is so wonderful. The baby's so great. You know, babies spend most of their time sleeping. And when they're not sleeping, they're eating, they're burping, they're vomiting, you're changing nappies. They really don't objectively contribute a lot to the world around them. Yeah, we love the babies. Why we love babies, I feel, obviously part of it is instinctual, hot-wired into ourselves so that we, won't kill the babies or we'll look after them, and a certain joy with babies. But largely there's an infinite potential with a baby, and we feel there's something special. That baby could become the president. That baby could be a genius. And of course, as a baby gets older, it becomes a very normal kid, very average kid usually. But for that little while when that baby comes, we tend to have this awe because we're rating the baby with unconditional love and respect. We just love that baby, okay? But why is it we can love that baby, but we cannot love an old person? You ever notice that? You ever see people love to kiss babies who don't to kiss an old person? Why? Because the attributes of the old person is that they don't look very attractive and they don't seem to have a lot going for them. Now, let's be honest, that young kid doesn't have much of a personality either. I mean, it's just burping and gurgling, and it's not doing much, is it? So why is it that we rate the child so well, but rate the older person so badly? And we do this to so many people. We don't like the taxi driver. We don't like the person selling us coffee. We don't like somebody in the office. Don't like a family member. We don't like the neighbor. We're judging all those people. And of course, we're judging ourselves. And we're not happy about these other people. And of course, we're not happy about ourselves. Why? Because we have an attribute-based love. Say for example, you find somebody very, very attractive, very beautiful-looking, very attractive person. Why are they so beautiful? Why are you maybe so in love with them? Are you really in love with that person? Or are you in love with the body that they have? If they had a different body, would you still love them so much? I mean, the mute question to ask in the area of love is, if that person I'm romantically very interested in was a different gender or older looking or a different race or whatever, would I still like them? Because if the answer to that is I don't like them, you kind of say to yourself, why you really love it? Are you just in love with a fantasy? I remember as a young guy, when I was in my 20s, the TV show Friends was very, very popular. I used to go to nightclubs. And nightclubs were full of kind of Rachel clones. Rachel was the blonde-haired girl with the knee-length skirt. And it's very, very popular at the time. But I used to think it's weird that there are just so many women aspiring to look like this character. And it's just weird. So they're attributing a certain way. We look at influencers on Instagram and all this, and they have a certain way of looking and acting. And we're all chasing attributes. And ultimately, you're programmed about a bunch of attributes. And you're basing your self-identity, your self-worth, and your self-esteem, and your self-concept all based upon a bunch of attributes. And you're ranking yourself as either a success or a failure, other people's success or a failure. And this is all the judgmental mind. What will tend to be seen if you think of the left brain and right brain, the analytical side of the mind, where it's judging and breaking everything down to small little bits. So I honestly feel that the best way of, one way of having great self-respect is to have great self-esteem based upon great self-worth, based upon ticking all the boxes. But the problem with that is the moment you don't tick one of those boxes, you start feeling pretty crappy about yourself or about other people. So I would strongly advocate that if you really want to have great respect for yourself, it begins by developing a sense of unconditional, abiding love and respect for yourself. That you just love yourself without attributes. Doesn't matter how old you are, doesn't matter what ethnicity you come from, your educational level, how much money you got in the bank, how many friends you have, how good your personality is, how popular you are, how many people will write you a reference. Nothing. Because you are you, and you are a unique human being, and that's enough. And then try and have that same unconditional respect and love for other people as best you can. To the degree that you can have this unconditional love for yourself and acceptance for yourself, you'll be happy. To the degree you can have this unconditional love and respect for the people around you, you'll be non-judgmental of the other people and happy about the other people, no matter what they're doing. So, in simple answer, the psychology of self-respect, when you put all the terminology to one side, is basically to stop ranking yourself and other people. Now, how you stop ranking yourself and other people? Well, ultimately, it's about getting to know yourself and just reminding yourself, whether it be auto-suggestion or reading nice mind feed books and books that feed your mind about this, or thinking, philosophizing about life, or doing self-help programs, or whatever. But just continually reminding yourself that your self-worth is not based upon how much money you have, or how good-looking you are, or how successful you are, or whatever your ranking is, depending upon the way you were trained. You must go beyond that training. You see, when we're raising kids, to some degree we have to give kids a ranking. We have to give them, do this and don't do that, be like this and don't like that. But we have to do that, otherwise the kid won't brush their teeth, the kid won't go to school, the kid won't learn anything. We have to. But at some stage, if you want to become a mature human being, you have to realize that was my, like when you're learning on your bicycle, you have the stabilizers. That was me living my life was with stabilizers. But now I need to ride a bicycle without stabilizers. I mean, I take off this judgmentalism and I take off this ranking system and I just start cycling and going with the flow. And that's the most beautiful way of doing it, rather than rating yourself and ranking yourself. And that is the way to really have, let's say, a successful psychology, that you have true respect for yourself, because your respect is not based on attributes. You will get old and you will eventually lose all your money because you're going to die, okay? You're going to lose everything. You're going to lose your mind, you're going to lose your body, you're going to lose everything. But the only thing you have to the last moment is yourself. So simply respect yourself and go beyond attributes. And that is the solution to the psychology of self-respect. I hope you liked this video. Please like and subscribe if you do. I'll talk to you again next time.